I want to share a concept with you that I've been working on for the last couple months. It's out of Slonimsky's Thesaurus of Scales and Melodic Patterns, which is a really, it's a really inspiring book, massive in scope. He is a big thinker, and I recommend that you check it out if you haven't already. This is number 7. It didn't take me long diving into this book to find something that was inspiring and what I thought was both unique and immediately applicable. This scale is 1, flat 2, major 3, sharp 4, 5, flat 7. 1, flat 2, major 3, sharp 4, 5, flat 7. Immediately, a couple unique things about this scale. Well, it only has 6 notes. That's not the most common thing. Secondly, it has a flat 2 and a major 3rd. You run into that sometimes in Phrygian dominant, for example. But it also has a sharp 11. And you'll run into a major 3rd and a sharp 11 or a sharp 4 in Lydian dominant, but of course they both have a natural 2. This has a flat 2. You run into a flat 2 and a sharp 4 in Locrian, but of course Locrian has a minor 3. So these 3 notes together in a scale are unusual, but also immediately applicable to an altered dominant chord that we run into pretty frequently, actually. And that is because this scale is made up of 2 major triads, a tritone apart. So I'm in D, this is a D major triad, and an A flat major triad. And when you put those 2 triads into a scale, it sounds like this. Cool. So A flat over D. On its own, it sounds a little stringent, but in context, it's actually quite beautiful, and you'll hear pretty normal. So here's a scale that addresses that chord directly. I mean, you just couldn't get any more perfect. So the first thing I do with this scale is what I would recommend any student do with the major scale or modes of the major scale or any other scale they were looking at. Well, let's find a fingering on the 6th string and get comfortable with it. And so not just the fingering, but also maybe broken thirds or a melodic cell. Look at it in arpeggios, in triads. So these are all those things here. Here's just the scale. Broken thirds, or as close to thirds as you can get on this scale. It's a melodic cell that I use for most of the scales that I look at. Arpeggios. Sometimes I make myself do something from the top down instead of the bottom up. It sounds like a simple request, but it is oddly frustrating to have to do that. Stack the triads. Cool. Second thing we do, well, we need to transfer all that over to the 5th string. So corresponding fingering, I started on my 2nd finger here on the 6th string, so I'm going to start on my 2nd finger here on the 5th string. And then take it through the same process, broken thirds, melodic cell, and so forth. And I do that so that ultimately I can take it through all 12 keys. Now, through teaching, I've learned that for like over 20 years I've been doing the circle of fourths to get through all 12 keys. But every once in a while, I run into a student who's been using the circle of fifths, so I've been forcing myself to do the circle of fifths. So if I was going to do that, it would be something like this. And so on. So the next question is, how do we make music with this? Well, as I mentioned, this scale directly addresses an altered dominant chord that we run into a fair amount. Frequently you'll run into this chord. It's spelled dominant 7, flat 9, sharp 11. That sounds like a lot. And I tend to think of it as, for example, an A over E flat. In this case, I'm playing a first inversion A triad, C sharp E A over E flat, and that's the dominant 7, flat 9, and sharp 11 of the E flat chord. And this scale, just note for note, addresses that sound, which I'm going to demonstrate over Duke Ellington's classic Mood Indigo. So that's a little window into how I try to work through a new concept. Methodical, pretty simple, but I would apply it, like I said, to the major scale or the modes of the major scale or something out of Slonimsky. So I hope you enjoyed. Take care.